my name is Christina. I'm a third-year student at Bunka Fashion College in Tokyo. And in my last episode, I spoke about what it was like to apply and be accepted to Bunka. And in this episode, I'll be talking a little bit about what it's like to actually go to school there. So a lot of you guys are wondering what kind of programs are offered, how long the programs are, and all that kind of thing. I mean, I think it's the same at any fashion school you go to in Japan. There isn't just one program that you'll have. There's different courses that you can choose, and depending on the course, you'll have different kinds of classes you'll be taking, and it'll be different lengths and all that kind of stuff. Most programs at Bunka are either 2 or 3 years. So if you want to do like styling, or if you want to do makeup, or if you want to do modeling, or if you want to do clothes making or other kinds of things like that, there are different programs for each of these kinds of domains. In my case, I'm doing a 3-year program. The English name is something like Foundations of Fashion Technology or something like that. But really what it is that your first year you learn how to do basic clothes making. And from your second year, you actually get to choose one of 4 different programs that you can go into to kind of do a specialization in a sense. In my program, the 4 options were knitwear, apparel design, apparel technology, and industrial merchandising. And the one that I chose was the 4th of those, which is industrial merchandising. In the program I chose, we do a little bit more businessy things than just clothes making and design. We do things like merchandising and marketing and things like that. So that's a little bit about the kinds of programs that are offered at Bunka. But let me talk to you a little bit more about what you actually do and what day-to-day life kind of is at the school. Especially first year, you'll really learn a lot of really basic things. So they kind of assume that you don't have any sort of previous knowledge in clothes making. You learn how to make really basic things, you learn how to draw patterns, everything by hand. You learn about different kinds of materials, you learn about history, you learn about all kinds of things, but really the basic things, because no matter what program you're in, you need these kinds of basic knowledge things to build upon to go into more advanced classes. Again, in my experience, even though I'm doing a more businessy program, my first year was the exact same thing that people who go into apparel design or pattern making things do. I learned how to make like a skirt, I learned how to make a blouse, I learned how to make a jacket, I learned how to make a one-piece dress, those kinds of things, as well as other things. Because essentially, even in business, if you don't know how things are made, you can't necessarily sell them as well. I don't know, I mean, it's just a requirement that everyone has at least a kind of basic knowledge. One thing that you can't get discouraged by is the fact that you will not understand that much your first few months of school there. As a foreigner, Japanese is probably not going to be your first language, obviously. So there's the added difficulty of the fact that you're learning something new in a foreign language, but also the fact that you're learning a lot of new vocabulary that even your Japanese classmates don't know, because it's very program specific. For the first month or so, I understood like nothing what was going on, but I was still able to follow along with the classes, because again, everyone's kind of in the same boat as you. Even if Japanese is their mother tongue, people will be confused the first year of any program and anything in life. So don't get discouraged. So my first year, we took classes like, clothes making, obviously, and then things like history of fashion, history of like Western fashion, I should say, material, textile class, about materials, not making them, but about materials. There was like a design course. There was like, the design course is actually also like a color theory course. We had an anatomy class as well. We had drawing classes. We had all kinds of things that, it seemed like a whole bunch of random different courses at first, but then you realize that actually these courses that you're taking, they all kind of overlap each other. And your second and your third year, you'll start to understand that these things that you had to learn in your first year that you're like, why are we learning this, are actually super important for the things you're going to be learning your second and your third year, no matter what program you're in. So like your first year is really the basic of everything. So like again, people might get discouraged because you're thinking, this isn't what I wanted to do. Maybe I wanted to like design something fantastic. And in your first year, you might not be able to do that. You have to understand that for any sort of anything in the world, your first year of anything will be really basic stuff, because if you don't have the basics, you can't build upon that. So in addition to just going to classes and stuff like that, there are other kinds of activities that you do with your class. And in your first year, actually, everybody gets to go to this camp that Bunka owns out in Nagano. And you go there for a few days with your classmates. It's kind of like a bonding activity. You do it very early on, and within the first month or two, of starting there. It's a good way to get to know your classmates and make friends and stuff like that. But in your second year, actually, depending on the program, you might go on a trip. I went to Kyoto, Osaka, Nara, and Wakayama for a little bit. That was a lot of fun as well, and you get to, again, become better friends with your classmates and kind of see more of Japan. So it was the first time, it's the only time actually I've been out to Kansai, so that was a lot of fun as well. They do offer things like trips to like Europe during the winter break. I mean, those are not free. Also, there are things like the Bunka Festival, which happens in November. Everyone kind of has to do work for this Bunka Festival, and so you'll be grouped up with different people from different classes sometimes. So you get to make new friends and do other things. So some people will be in charge of actually making the costumes that are used in the big fashion show. But other people will be doing things like lighting or doing things like selling things at the bazaar. For me, actually, I was in charge of working on the exhibit last year for my own class. You will need a sewing machine. They do let you use sewing machines during class time and while the classroom is open, but you can't use them on the weekend. And depending on how many people are in your class, you might not be able to have your own personal sewing machine. You might have to share it with other people. So you are highly encouraged to buy your own sewing machine. The big difference, I'm going to say, between Japanese language school and Bunka or any sort of like fashion college is that in Japanese school, at least in my case, I had to study a lot, that's true, but I had more free time because once I was done my homework and done studying, I could, hang around and do fun things. But when you're involved in like anything like a fashion college and stuff like that, you have to spend a lot of time making things, a lot of time working. So it's not just like go to class and then just like go out drinking and go and have fun every night. No, it's go to class, go home, and keep working. Realistically, depending on where you're living, you might not have actually the space to work on things at home. So you have to find time to go in and use the tables at the very least, even if you can't use the sewing machines there on the weekend. I just go in on Saturdays often to draw patterns if I have to, or cut fabric, or those kinds of like really like simple sounding things. You might not be able to do them at your apartment, so you have to kind of organize what can I do during class time, what can I do at home, and what can I do after school or on days off when I can go into the school but I can't use the sewing machines. You should always remember that it's going to be entirely in Japanese. All of the classes are going to be in Japanese, and most of your classmates will not speak English, and even if they're not Japanese, they'll often be from countries that they don't speak English anyway. All of your interactions at school will be in Japanese, so if you have a problem, it'll have to be done in Japanese. When you go to Japanese language school, for example, the teachers are used to dealing with foreigners, and they're used to talking with foreigners, and they understand that you will not understand everything. They expect questions because they know it's not your first language, and they know that you're there to learn Japanese. When you go to a school in Japanese, where 90% or 95% of the students are going to be Japanese, and like 100% of the teachers are going to be Japanese. For maybe the first time you're in a real Japanese society, it's really like putting yourself entirely into a Japanese environment, which isn't a bad thing or anything like that. It's just that it's different, and it'll take some getting used to. It doesn't matter how much you can learn about Japanese culture. Once you're in it, it's not exactly the same as what you're going to expect it to be. Did I have any problems? I don't know, probably. I mean, I still do, I guess. The thing is that they're all problems you can deal with and things you can get over. It's not the end of the world. Not only will you be learning something new, fashion stuff for the first time maybe, you're going to be doing it in a different language, and you're going to be doing it in a different culture and a different environment. So there's all these different factors of things that will be really difficult your first year. If you can get past your first year, you can get past your second year really easily. In your third year, you're going to have graduation stuff and job hunting stuff, which will be other kinds of stress, because you'll have learned to deal with other kinds of stress and other kinds of cultural differences and other kinds of like language barriers and stuff like that. Maybe you can deal with them better because you've dealt with them for many years now. Just be open-minded, that's all I can say, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't feel bad if you get discouraged sometimes. It happens to everybody, but you just have to find a way of dealing with it. Keep going to school, even if things are really difficult. No matter how hard it is, get up in the morning, get there on time, get there early, get work done. Make a routine that makes it fun to go to school even when things are really difficult. So pretty much the way it works for grading is that depending on the class, of course, it'll be different because again, you have different classes you're taking, and the grading system will be different depending on the class. You'll have a main class, and again, in my case, it's clothes making. So that grade will be made up of what you actually make in class. So the things that you've sewn and all the kinds of design points and all that kind of stuff. And then you also have grades based on written tests, actually. You have written exams. Like I mentioned, It's in Japanese. One thing that you have to remember as a foreigner is that you don't get special treatment for exams. Your exams will be in Japanese like everybody else's, and you're not allowed to use any sort of dictionaries, no electronic dictionaries, no paper dictionaries, no nothing. They might be a little bit more lenient if you can't remember the kanji for something and you write it in hiragana or something like that, because they know that it's not your first language. In terms of everything else, I mean, it's all in Japanese, and you have to remember that. It's definitely doable. It's impossible for me to talk about the entirety of Bunka studies in like one episode, but that's pretty much like Bunka in a nutshell. If you have any questions though, please let me know in the comments, and I will try and answer them individually. In my next episode, I'll be talking about what it's like to look for a job in Japan for when you graduate. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for all of your comments. And please follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Tumblr and everything. なんかさっき言われたんだけどいなかったよ。今日ね、休みなの。休みなの。私も休みだよ。This is my friend Yu-chan. She works at Wall in Harajuku and in La Forêt. And she's fantastic, and I love her. She happened to be walking by while we were shooting, so I brought her and I put her in. Yay! So thanks so much for watching. Thanks for all of your comments. And make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Tumblr and all that stuff. Thank you. Bye-bye.